My name is Andrew Bonthius. I'm president of Labor Education and Arts Project, and I welcome you all here this morning. We had a great kickoff event at the church last night up in Shaker Heights with the Wobblies singing groups, and it was wonderful. Some of you were there, I know. And appreciate your attendance here at our fourth Cleveland LaborFest. And we hope it will be educational as well as entertaining. And just briefly on the order of the day, I hope all of you have got the order of the day, which is on the back table there, and with some information about our panelists. We've also got some things for purchase, very important history about the Wobblies, American history, as well as connecting with Ohio history. How many of us knew that the Wobblies were quite active here in Ohio? I could have figured it, but I never really knew the details. And we've got some wonderful history here that covers that in our booklet. This is our third publication, by the way. So if you're interested in that history, well, obviously you are. You're here. It is for purchase back there. However, there is to be library policy is we cannot exchange any money. So Greg Reamer in the back there. Correct? Raise your hand so everybody can see you. He will take orders for this book, and also Peter Cole is selling a couple things as well. Has a couple books for sale. Peter, weren't there? Oh, over here. Yeah. Okay. A couple books here on the Wobblies. But again, we have to take orders for those things, and I think there's an alley out back where we can exchange money or something. I don't know. So at any rate, I think without further ado, we should start this film. Hope I covered it all. I'm sorry? Oh, I apologize. Yes, Peter. Peter, please. Come up. Yeah, it's the order of the day. I should have read it. Okay, please come up and introduce the film, and then...
Hi there, everyone. My name's Peter Cole. I'm a historian, and I've written some on the IWW. Anyway, this film that you're about to watch, if you have not seen it before, is a wonderful film. Documentary film, sort of typical talking heads with footage, occasional footage. We remember that in 1905, 1915, 1920, video technology was still in its infancy, and so there's precious little footage, unfortunately, of this time. And so I've never seen a speech when Big Bill Haywood talks, right? And they didn't video the 1905 inaugural convention of the IWW in Chicago, where 200 people got together and had a Continental Congress of the working class. That's unavailable, right? And so what we've got, if we are people who care about the past and the present and the future, well, we often go to the people who are present, yeah. And so 1905 is a long time ago, right? Like if you were 20 or 30 in 1905, you're probably not walking the streets anymore. This documentary was made, in the late 70s, early 80s, and so there were still some old-timers who were from the early 1900s around and were able to give their personal experiences to the filmmakers in a way that actually in 2017 is simply no longer possible, right? I am thrilled when I meet someone whose father or mother was involved in these struggles in the early 20th century, because at this point that's as close as we get. We're already one generation removed really from those who were around, and even further, of course. And so this documentary film, as you see it, as you watch it, most of the people, I think, including myself, are taken by the elderly folks in the film who are talking about their lives and our nation and the world in the early 20th century, which in some ways is dramatically different than our times, but in other ways is actually quite similar. And so when we talk about the late 19th century, as historians, we often call it the Gilded Age, a time when basically the rise of industrialization, but also the rise of tremendous economic inequality, right, where the gap between the rich and the rest grew to phenomenal heights. And that is why, of course, we often talk about the early 21st century as the second or new Gilded Age, because of really weak unions over the last 40 years or so, we've returned to that level of inequality that existed when the IWW was first established in 1905, right? That might be one of the reasons that the IWW and other similar organizations and ideologies are increasingly of interest to younger people, is because they see the conditions of today and they have a critique of that, and then they start asking questions and start looking back to the past for answers or other questions, and they come upon the Wobblies because they were asking these exact same questions that we're asking today about the times that they lived in due to the really economic inequality of capitalism in the U.S. and the world, right? And so this film, I think, has incredibly intelligent and wise people, most of whom have limited formal education, but nevertheless had incredible life experience. But I do want to give a shout out to the first historian of the IWW who's interviewed in this film. His name was Fred Thompson. He was a Wobbly, and he wrote the official IWW history, the IWW, the first 50 years, then it was updated the first 70 years. I believe there was a first 100 years updated with John Becken as being one of the co-authors. But Fred Thompson is actually in the film. He's the guy who sounds like a professor, but in fact was a worker and knew everybody involved back in the 20s when he was a young man, and later became, like I said, the sort of the unofficial official historian of the IWW. And without saying anything more, I'm happy to talk after the film or discuss, but we can get started.